Welcome back to another episode of Yachting Unplugged, where we go beyond the bow and bring you what's making waves in the industry. My name is Kim Sweers, the boat boss.
And I'm Rick Thomas, and we're diving into national headlines today, Florida happenings, boating drama, and everything that's shaking up the industry. So Kim, let's just jump right on in.
We're going to jump right into it. I'll tell you, we're going to keep it light and bright and positive. Out of DC, the tariffs have been delayed until July 9th. I'm really excited about that.
I think that's good. It gives everybody time to kind of, know what's coming and make good decisions.
And the phone's been ringing a little bit more at the dealership, and I know a lot of people in the industry are feeling the same uptick right now. What have you heard?
It's a mixed bag, but I'm hearing more people busy. I'm not hearing about any new layoffs, and everybody that's been in the circles that I've been circulating in has a very optimistic outlook for the summer and going into the fall season. So I'm sitting here glass half full, saying we're going to end up with a pretty good year this year.
Yeah, I know that some of the surveyors are busy. I've heard my friend Frank, who's a surveyor, he's very busy, and the finance companies are busy, or busier, which is a great sign.
Yeah,
good uptick for sure.
That is a good sign.
All right, well, interesting. Let's going to dive into some fun. It was actually Captain Carey from Below Deck.
Yeah, Captain Carey.
Captain Carey reached out to me on social media and sent me a clip of a Russian gentleman stealing a 60, 70-foot yacht.
The $2 million yacht down in Tequesta?
Right.
Crazy.
I mean, how does that happen? I can see stealing a car, you put it in a garage, or, you just drive on the highway till it's gone. But how do you steal a yacht and get away with it?
Well, there's two parts of that, Kim. You can steal the yacht actually almost too easily because these boats are tied to the dock. And if you are good around boats, if you know how they work, you make yourself look like you belong, very few people are going to question you if you come on board a boat, throw the lines out, fire up the engines, and go. There's no parking brake really, and as long as you have got the ability to get those engines fired up, have a great day. Right. The bigger problem, though, is what do you do with it?
Yes, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's like you said, it's a one-and-done thing. Hopefully it's, something that they just use and don't destroy the boat. Use it for whether it's drugs, narcotics, people, whatever, transport
usually
something.
What happens. They grab the boat, they go either move contraband into the country, or
it's crazy video. If you saw it, the agencies were just pushed them right up into the mangroves, it looked like. But
they don't play, do they?
But thanks to Captain Carey, appreciate that. And
that was fun.
If you have news, hey, just send it to us.
Send it over. We'll have a good time with it.
Well, speaking of news, huge news. Tell me about what's going on for traffic.
Well, this is crazy. Fort Lauderdale, 17th Street Causeway Bridge, Fort Lauderdale Bridge. Remember back when they built that, there was the talk about the tunnel, the bridge, they went with the bridge. Wonder if they're wondering if the tunnel would have been a better go.
Right.
But so they're now starting, I think, June 2nd, tomorrow. During rush hour, they're going to close the bridge to boat traffic.
Yes.
And they're going to carry that program all the way through November.
And it's just rush hour.
Rush hour. So in the morning from probably 7 to 8:30 or 7:30 to 9, something like that. And in the evening from 4:30 till 6 probably.
Yeah. Yep, so it's a trial period that's lasting until the end of November, starting, like Rick said, June 2nd to November 28th, right?
That's right. The bridge will remain closed during rush hour. Now, the good news for most boaters, that bridge span is about 54-foot clearance. Yeah. So most boats that navigate the ICW should have very little problem getting under it. Unless you're a bigger boat, then you're going to have to plan accordingly.
Right. So speaking to the captains, check your times before, and it is an international gateway around the world. That's why we're bringing it to you on Yachting Unplugged, because a lot of the vessels are coming from across the pond and everywhere else internationally. So
it's good to know it.
So thanks to the local politicians and the people in the city involved in that, and the federal agencies.
Yeah. I mean, the bigger boats that want to come into Pier 66 and BMR, you go under the bridge for the most part, so beware.
Yep. Well, how was your Memorial Day?
Good. I actually was out on the water a lot. It's interesting because what we're going to talk about, when I brought my family and boat out on Monday morning, I looked over to the sandbar. Everybody knows about the sandbar. There's actually 2 or 3 of them over there, but there's a big one, the triangle they call it.
Right outside of the yacht club.
Yeah, and I saw the boats piling in there, and I thought, no. So I went down to Whiskey Creek and put my boat on the beach right there, and that was great. But amongst all those people, there was tragedy that happened there.
There was no deaths on that, but 11 people out of the 15 people on that 39 Sea Ray, 11 people. There was a boat explosion, a flash fire. Actually ended up hurting quite a few people, 11 people on that out of 15.
Reminiscent of what happened at the 15th Street fuel docks a few months ago.
Right.
You know, you have to be aware when you, particularly if you're driving a gasoline-powered boat like you, if you can smell it, you have a problem. These fumes, vapors can, particularly in the heat, the sun, you know, that will cook things off. And most fuel tanks and fuel systems are ventilated properly. Yes. Older boats sometimes run into problems if they're not maintained well or things clog up the ventilation. Bottom line is fuel fumes congregated.
Yeah, it smells.
And
so if it smells, don't turn your boat on. Stop.
No, evacuate the boat actually.
Absolutely.
You know, get some ventilation fans going, whatever that looks like. But yeah, they started the engines and the boat blew up and a lot of people were injured, unfortunately.
Yep, so 11 people. There's some, I think 4 still in critical condition, 2 of them being a child and there was a dog on board. Let's go to there was 3 fires actually.
Yeah, crazy, huh?
And there was a second one. Let's talk about that one.
Yeah, a 30-foot boat, Magia, which was offshore near the 2100 block of South Ocean Drive in Fort Lauderdale. Only one guy on board, fortunately, but he was hurt. Something caused it to blow up, too. I don't know if he was on a mooring or was underway. More likely he was on a mooring, perhaps. But, you know, he jumped into the water to escape the fire. He was hurt. Fortunately, he was rescued. He'll probably recover. But another boating incident, same weekend.
Same weekend,
and
right,
same kind of
exactly,
thing.
Right,
You
and
know.
then we had a 48 Viking actually catch on fire.
That's
very
an odd
popular,
one, right?
Yeah, it is very odd.
Yeah, that was
13 miles offshore.
Yeah, off Jupiter, which is a great fishing area. I mean, that's big fishing up there. And you go out 13 miles, you're in big, beautiful blue water. Yeah, but what a loss to lose your boat. That's every boater's nightmare.
So we're going to reach out. We're going to actually have someone from Resolve on the show to talk about that. You had mentioned that. We're going to have some other guests on our future show that's really going to talk about fire prevention.
Well, my friend Chauncey Naylor and I were just speaking before we came on air. He's going to help us set up a demonstration. We're going to demonstrate, tabletop demonstrate, the power of gasoline and what happens, and that'll come up in a couple weeks.
I'm going to wear my whole gear for that one. I want to burn my hair off.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. We got to keep that beautiful hair intact, right, all the way through this.
Well, speaking of demonstrations, there's a lot of demonstrations and products that are going to be showcased at IBEX.
Yeah.
We really want to drive home the point that IBEX is coming.
It is going to be here this October,
Yes.
October 7th to the 9th at the Tampa Convention Center up in Tampa.
Yes.
I've been going to that show for years. Is this your first trip up?
No, I've been going to IBEX
That's right.
I mean, wow, a very long time.
That's right. Mets is your first one coming up.
Yes.
Yeah, but IBEX is great.
Now I remember I was fighting cancer in Tampa, and that's when I first started going to IBEX. So it's been about 10 years now that I've been attending IBEX, and what a great show it is.
Yeah. I'm bringing one of my clients into that show. We're showing off the Toma Top for the second time this year at the IBEX Show. It is a congregation of the U.S. boating industry and elements of the world boating industry coming into Florida, Tampa specifically, for 4 days of just good networking, great presentations, great products, sea trial demonstrations in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, there's tons of boat manufacturers that are actually on the bay, which is great. So it gives you a chance to get out there and test some of the hybrid solutions and also the autonomous driven vessels and so many great new products that are on the water, not just inside the convention center. So book your hotel and register today.
I love it.
All right, let's talk
about
people
in the news.
Yes, people in the news. I mean, Frank Holgemeyer, who's a great advocate. He's the man in the industry.
NMMA.
Yes, he's the president of the NMMA, and he's recently been...
He's going to ICOMIA now. Yeah, which is the international version of the NMMA, taking sounds like a similar role.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations to Frank. He's really been a massive voice in the industry, and him and his team have really wrapped their arms around a lot of issues, taking them not only to the state level, but federal as well. And we are so thankful to have his leadership.
That advocacy is so important to an industry like ours, and to have a voice like Frank's. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, congratulations on the new role.
So it's raining. We're here at Sunrise Harbor Marina. We're inside, folks. We're dressed to go outside.
We were going to be on the docks.
I know, we were, and it's raining out, and it is the second day of hurricane season.
Yeah, and this is unusual because usually Florida, you get rain for an hour or two, and then it goes out.
No, it's been raining all day.
Since first thing this morning. So here we are inside, but it is the start of hurricane season.
It is, and NOAA expects, I think they said 13 to 19 storms is what they're projecting. 6 to 10 to become hurricanes, and
3 to 5 over
they'll be
Cat
Cat
3.
3 or more. So let's say our prayers that they actually don't go nowhere.
Well, the good news, if there is good news, and this is not much different than last year's and the previous year's forecast, they're staying fairly consistent in the number of named storms and the size and the intensity of these storms, which just is a good reminder that going into hurricane season, you don't prepare when you're hearing about the named storm heading your way. That you're way behind the curve if you do that.
There's nothing available. I mean, you're basically, your insurance company requires that you have that plan.
Right.
Especially if your boat's here in South Florida.
Yeah.
And so act now, get it done.
Yeah, have a float plan, have a hurricane plan, know where you're going to put the boat. If you got a small boat like mine where you may or may not be required by insurance, or you just don't have the wherewithal to get up the river to a hurricane hole, then you need to have additional planning, such as the ability to double up your lines, understand what's happening around you, situational awareness, so that your boat might be secured great, but if the guy up the canal or down the canal from you isn't, his boat's going to be the one that takes your boat out.
Oh, exactly.
So
and not just yachts, but there's tenders and there's people's boats that are on the lift, so make sure you strap them down and prepare.
And if you're on a lift, take the plug out of the back of your boat. I've seen so many lifts fail because the boat fills up with water and can't handle all that extra tonnage, and then boom, everything's gone bad day.
But what we can handle is that the Panthers are in the Stanley Cup
Hoorah,
playoffs. So
yeah.
high five. We got
Second year in a row.
got my Panthers hat on, which, Rick, you got to hit up the store here in Fort Lauderdale.
You know what?
War Memorial Auditorium.
We're going to do that. We're going to do that.
Check
Yes,
it out.
absolutely.
But our first game is Wednesday against the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
And they've been in the Stanley Cup
A long time ago.
84, 85, 87, 1988, and 1990. So I love it, but you know what? We're coming after your lunch money.
Well, they're on a dry run. They're coming out of a dry run, so you know they're motivated.
But we're on a
hot streak.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
we won the Stanley Cup last year, the Florida Panthers, and shout out to a lot of the players, the coaches who are avid boaters. That's why we talk about the Panthers a lot. Yeah. The Panthers, I call them the culture kings, because they really have created such an enormous culture here at the Florida Panthers, and they, instead of having a lot of the players become free agents, they've really located the Iceplex downtown, inside the boating capital of the world, so they don't have to travel out where you live, all the way out west in Fort Lauderdale. They really practice downtown. They take their golf carts to work. They are in their boats constantly. So the Panthers are avid boaters, and they're just couldn't be happy for them.
It's a good synergetic relationship between the professional franchise and the community, which is what it's all about, really.
So hopefully we'll have them on another Viking. I know last year they took the Stanley Cup on a Viking. I have that photo and in my phone, but hopefully we'll do it again and have the whole parade here on A1A. It was such a great experience last year.
Absolutely. And I'm sure our producer, Ray, is going to be pulling for the Panthers again this year, too.
Yeah, I know. Well, speaking of Viking, some unusual news we heard. Viking Valhalla Yacht Sales, which is their arm, the division that sells the Valhalla and
Sport
other.
boat.
Yeah, they are now a Monterey dealer.
That is pretty interesting. Monterey Boats, they're expanding. I don't know who, they're both benefiting, obviously, but that retail arm of Viking Yachts is now working with Monterey and Synergy, and good on them.
Yep,
Great,
saw a
great
picture
boats.
of Chuddy and Pat Healy and his entire team, his sons and Ryan, and they were all in that picture. So congratulations. We'll wait to see what happens
Love
there.
the positivity. And speaking of Viking, they're making some sustainability moves and headlines as well. Their annual dealer convention meeting in New Gretna is happening next month, and they're bringing out the 48 convertible powered by Scania V8 engines. It's going to run on renewable diesel. And, renewable diesel is a fuel that is manufactured from a variety of resources, not just, pure petroleum. So it's a unique product. It's a unique way of finding another version of sustainability. And that's where innovation starts with innovative companies like Viking Yachts. So again, to Pat and the rest of the Healy family, congratulations. I'm sure Lonnie Rutt had something to do with that. So
they say innovation is the only way to win. Steve Jobs always pressed that motto.
That's so true.
So winning is huge. If we embrace technology, we all win, not just the manufacturers, the clients, but really our environment and everyone.
Absolutely.
So congratulations. All right, well, let's go into the controversial topic of Yacht Trader and
Boat Group. Yeah.
Boat Trader Yacht World, which is owned by Boats Group. We are still, that whole thing is still going on. I know the MRAA, Matt Gruen, and we're still talking about the price increases. So that's something to see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the wholesale business selling boats, if you're in the dealership world of selling boats, it's a competitive space. And one of your big expenses is the marketing, is the advertising. It's how you get your messaging out. Now, someone like Kim, if you pay attention to what the Boat Boss does, she's multifaceted, and she is putting her dealership and her brand out in very innovative ways using social media, but you still have that need to be part of that marketing
it's our
program.
version of the MLS. Like realtors have the MLS.
That's right.
We have Boats Group and their platforms, and it's just getting the cost of ownership, as we call it, and in boats, it's the cost of doing business that's getting out of control.
But as the price goes up for you, you have to pass it along to your customer.
We do. Actually, I pass it on to my salespeople, which they actually don't like, but it's a hard cost now that it can't be ignored anymore in the dealerships and manufacturers as well. So we really hope that there's a solution. I know one of the executives from Boats Group has now formed and done something new. We have Center Consoles Only that's formed their new site. So it's interesting to see. Competition is always good, as they say.
I love it. And speaking of good.
And we have the IYBA, site.
They've got a lot doing in there too. And so there's other resources, but you have to pay attention to those costs. They're what allows you to be competitive, or they hold you back on your margins.
Yep.
Good news, though. I love good news, and I love the Garmin. I love the Garmin brand and product. I've got a beautiful.
I did a post on it, and it went viral.
That's what I use on my own boat.
Do you?
Yeah, and I saw that post, and I agree that watch of theirs is so cool.
Think about Garmin's huge, and all the products that I have in my dealership. Most of our clients choose Garmin, and it's a brand to be reckoned with. They're the leader, and I decided, why not sync my health with my yachting and my boating? Why not have it all in one, where I can control the audio on my watch and do my walks and my steps and do the autopilot all on the Garmin Mark. Yeah. So I'm looking into that. So we'll see.
And then the other, again, I like talking about products that are good products, well manufactured, well thought out. I bought a Garmin for my boat 7 years ago. And last year, after I did a major renovation on my boat, for the first time, I took the SD card out and I updated all the software, put it back in. Kim, I got a brand new Garmin out of that.
Really?
Everything changed on that machine.
That's incredible.
And it was just like, wow, how cool is that? So that's a company that thought about what the future looks like. So they've earned the fact that they just crossed the $1 billion revenue mark for the first time. And their overall revenue in the maritime space jumped 20% year over year.
It's incredible.
That's good on the water.
That's great on the water. It's epic.
Yeah.
It's epic numbers, especially in the market we're in.
I tell you what. So we touched on a couple things here today. The coming in with good business, good innovation. Being willing to spend the efforts to create the products that people want has a reward.
No, absolutely. Well, the reward is we made it to another show.
We did. So from tariffs to takeovers and to Cuesta drama, we've brought it all to you today. What a day.
I really hope, and Rick, that you enjoy the Yachting Unplugged podcast as we share every Monday with you. Tune in every Monday as we bring the industry's latest news, all the people, the movers and shakers, the events, the news, both at the state, federal, and worldwide level.
Yes. And next week, I'm going to talk with you about what I'm going to be doing later this month with Piper's Angels Foundation.
Okay.
I'll be going over for the fourth time to Bimini to support the Crossing for a Cure. It's an organization that develops or supports the development of treatments, not the cure, for cystic fibrosis. And what's so fun about it, it's a boating environment, a boating experience. We go over, we spend a week on the island as a family, and then we leave Bimini at midnight and with paddle boards cross 84 miles from Bimini Sands to Lake Worth Pier. It takes about 16 or 17, 18 hours, depending on how fast they paddle.
Right, wow.
But we're raising money and we're doing some really cool things. And this year I am taking a woman across that has cystic fibrosis, and she is going to try to go iron beach to beach without touching the boat and taking direct boat support.
That's great.
And if she does, she'll be the first woman with cystic fibrosis to make that trip.
Wow. Hats off to her. And what is her name?
Her name is Riley Walker.
Riley, Riley, props to you for doing that. And we'll put some information in the post below about the actual voyage and what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Well,
and
thanks so much for that.
I'll talk a little more in depth with it next week. It'll be fun. Maybe we'll bring
Excellent.
Riley or somebody on board to talk to us too.
Well, folks, thanks for tuning in again to another episode of Yachting Unplugged. On behalf of Jeff and myself,